Why is Utah being judged so well and Oklahoma State's being judged so critically when we have a lot of very similar things to replace?
Here's how I look at it. The biggest differences between Utah and Oklahoma State. We can talk about quarterback more in a second, but to me, we clearly have a better quarterback situation. Most important position on the field. Yes, he has to prove he can succeed at the P4 level. But when you look at the makings of a guy ready to step up, being the only player in the country last year who threw for over 2,500 yards, rushed for 1,000 yards, led college football in yards per carry, led the fourth best offense in a yards per game basis, re-teaming with his offensive coordinator, I might add as well too, and was tied for first amongst quarterbacks in forced missed tackles a season ago, is why a lot of the country is high on Devin Dampier. And also, I'll just say this. Why was Utah bad last year? They were in a bunch of one-score games that they could not win because, simply put, they had horrendous quarterback play. Oklahoma State not in a lot of – they were in some one-score games, but they also got blown out on several occasions. Utah really only got blown out against Colorado later in the season. So you look at this Utah team outside of that, yes, we obviously both have running backs to replace. We did get Wayshawn Parker. He had 700 yards as a true freshman at Washington State, so I think he will be good. I think the reason a lot of people are high on Utah, though, too, is this offensive line. I mean, right now you have two projected first-round offensive tackles. That's absolutely massive. All five starters are coming back on an offensive line that last year was still very good, too. So I just don't see how that offensive line, granted, I know y'all returned all five starters last year. I don't see how that unit's bad. Like, just with those two tackles, even if the interior offensive line can improve a little bit, they were still good enough last year, too. We're still talking about the second-best defense in the Big 12 last year, too. So even though they lose some guys, I still expect them to be a top 5 unit. It's a Utah team when they have had their starting quarterback, the quarterback they intended to lead this team. The last two times that's been the case, because last 2 years was Cam Rising's health. That's why it didn't happen and go that way. This Utah team has made it to a conference championship game and won it 2 times in a row. Utah's also gotten over that hump. Oklahoma State just hasn't yet. So to me, Utah's biggest question mark was quarterback and offense, and they have gotten a guy who at the very least will be better. So Utah to me is absolutely a logical pick to return to form in the conference.
You brought down the big fellas up front, and that is something that I don't think a lot of us nationally paid attention to. We knew about Fano, like everybody knows how phenomenal that dude is, but I don't think we realized that you have all of your offensive line back. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the quarterback position? Obviously speaks volume. My only difficulty with Devin Dampier is I felt this same way in the offseason last year about DeQuan Finn.
Yeah.
Right? He had, 1,600 yards rushing or something crazy like that at Toledo, another 2,000 yards. He did some insane stuff and shattered records at Toledo. So I thought that would translate to Baylor, but he was not very good at all. And clearly the adjustment to the level of competition was his biggest issue. Why does the Utah country have faith that Devin Dampier is not going to go through the same thing that DeQuan Finn did? Coming in, tons of missed tackles, tons of athleticism, or very good arm strength, but the adjustment to this level was just a little bit too much for DeQuan Finn. What is Dampier going to be able to do to counterbalance that?
Well, that's where I mentioned I think it's great that he's coming with his offensive coordinator, a guy who knows how to maximize his skills, make him work too. Also, I know Baylor's offense got better as the season went on. It was a rough start for the Bears, especially along the offensive line, I thought as well too. So the fact that you have that continuity back on the offensive line, Jim Harding's a really good offensive line coach, the one that Utah has as well. They've consistently been able to put offensive linemen into the NFL recently too. So I feel good about those players' continued growth there as well too. I think Devin Dampier is going to have time. Utah's questions at wide receiver. Let's not act like this is, I think I picked Utah to win the Big 12 this season, but it's not like, oh my gosh, they're going to breeze through the conference. No, they're going to be in several difficult games. I mean, we just got through, we'll talk about a little bit this Big 12 game we just had this last weekend, I know. Yeah. So you see those two physical teams, I'm like, dang, it's going to, Utah misses Iowa State, but Kansas State, that's going to be a fist fight. I could see either team getting a win in that one there. But for Utah, to me, it is because, to me, Devin Dampier also, here's another thing with Devin Dampier. He played P4 teams last year. He succeeded against them. If you look at what he did against Arizona, against Auburn, against a borderline P4 team, Washington State, he had good numbers against them overall. So to me, he feels like a guy who's ready to make this transition because he's going to have time in the pocket. Only sacked 5 times last year. He should have been sacked 5 times alone against Arizona or against Auburn, but he was sacked just 5 times on the year in total. So I like the athlete that he is. I feel confident he's in the right system to maximize him. Cody, it's totally fair to bring up DeQuan Finn, but if you look at college football as a whole, we do see G5 QBs come up to the P4 level and have success. Last year, Diego Pavia, say what you want about him. Vandy had one of their best years in a very long time. Curtis Rourke from Indiana. It's a very different quarterback than a Jaquan Finn and some of these guys, but he helped Indiana have a monster season a year ago too. And you can say that as well about Green, the transfer at Arkansas as well. Was he a great quarterback? No, but he still had success, made plays at the P4 level. So we do see quarterbacks come in and have success. It matters what system you're in. I feel like Dampier's in the right system. I think he's going to flourish. And Cody, I think the take that you have, I love you, man. I think it's insane. I think he's easily going to be better than any quarterback that comes out of Stillwater. I don't know what you're smoking or drinking down there, but I do not have confidence in that Oklahoma State QB situation being better than Devin Dampier at all.
Well, I think Zane Flores is bigger than Dampier, has a better arm than Devin Dampier, and Haas Haney is faster than Devin Dampier.
What has he accomplished at the collegiate level?
Nothing yet.
Listen.
What has Devin Dampier accomplished at this level?
I said collegiate level, first of all.
I heard you trying to sneak that in there. I heard you. All right. Hey, that would have been a phenomenal segue, but real quick, I do want to ask you, because you mentioned having one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the Big 12 this previous season, Utah. Second. But I went through 247. Y'all have 6 defensive backs that left. Not all of them were starters. I'm sure of that. Yes. But what have you guys done in the portal to replace those few DBs that were starters to kind of get that defense back to where it was this last year?
Yeah, and you brought that up on a squad show before, and I was dismissive of it. That's fair. Some of the depth guys. I think the reason I'm confident with the secondary, that even if they're a little worse, because of the guys that left, so they lost 2. They kind of had 4 corners who played a lot for them. 2 of them back, 2 of them left. So Smith Snow, the slot corner, he's going to be one of the best in the Big 12 this upcoming season, I believe. Elijah Davis on the outside. He was really good last year too. So it's okay. Who's the next guy that steps in there and steps up? For Utah right now, it's looking like it's going to be Blake Cotton, the UC Davis transfer. And I'm excited for him. Also, you mentioned something interesting, Cody. We can dive into this another time. But Utah also brought in an Auburn transfer, and Blake Cotton has been able to beat him out. Just because those guys are coming from some of those bigger conferences, I'm curious to see if they will be able to get on the field and make that impact. I'm sure you covered that more in other shows. But also, if we look at Utah's safety room, Teo Johnson, really good last year. He needed to clean up his tackling a little bit, but in coverage, he was fantastic. So 3 starters back. And Rabbit Evans, if you look at some of the games he played later in the season, particularly against Iowa State, where he got the start with Utah's other safety injured, he looks phenomenal. So I just feel this is a really good Utah secondary. Sharif Shaw, Morgan Scalley, the coaches there. Morgan Scalley is one of the best DCs in college football. Like, they just always produce really good secondary. Question for Utah will be along the defensive line. That's another position where it's like Utah usually has good defensive linemen, but they lost more transfers and guys to the NFL that were impact guys in that secondary. So it's kind of like, okay, who's going to step up on the defensive line? That's the question. Get Lander Barton back. Good linebacking core there. But do feel good about that secondary. Can Utah generate pressure? That's the bigger question. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties or investments, and you just don't have the time to fill out the full picture. You can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface and on your laptop or phone too. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Maximizing investments, increase your savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner and or financial advisor. That's what you can do with Monarch Money. You can keep a clear view of your financial health. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces. You can head over to Monarch Money today. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. Appreciate Cody Stovall for making the time, and all of you who listen to this episode, especially those of you who make us your everyday listen, and even more so those of you who listen to the end of each of these episodes. We're getting closer and closer to game day. On tomorrow's show, a crossover with the host of Locked On UCLA you don't want to miss, previewing game 1 of the season. We're almost there, and we'll see you tomorrow as we continue to break down Utah versus UCLA.